Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning. Let me sound cheerful. I have my cup of coffee and I'm ready to join you live. So, we have 10 more days in this month before we move into October. And then that's November. And you know what's happening in November? Well, it is NaNoWriMo. So we're going to spend the next 10 days. And I tried this before, but I'm more prepared because I used the Snowflake method when I wrote my second draft. Initially, when I started, I thought it was my first draft, but then it was my second draft. And it made writing so much easier. Comments, comments, comments. Good morning, Michelle. It's so good to have you here. There it is. I had to get my comments up this morning. So I decided to do the next 10 days in helping you bring your story to life, to get those ideas down on paper so the writing process will be much easier. Now, all the steps that I will share with you, and I'm going to do one a day, and we're going to have a working session. Now, if you don't want to follow the steps, you can use that working session to write whatever story or project you're working on. I won't have music playing in the background, but I will mute so we can spend at least 30 minutes to an hour, writing. So, what I wanted to share with everyone, because there's a lot of new writers out there, and there's a lot of people who want to write their first novel but don't know where to start. And for me, the Snowflake Method worked. And this book, I do recommend you to get because it is good. It's a story within a story. It really is. And it's How to Write a Novel Using the Snowflake Method by Randy Ingermanson. Now, I met him in person almost, I think 15 years ago. It could be a little longer than that. He came to Houston and he held a workshop and I attended. It was probably good for those who understood the writing process. I was new into writing, so everything that was shared about the Snowflake method went right over my head. I found it extremely complicated, but that's because I didn't know anything about writing. I thought I did because I wrote my first story, and I shared this the other day. When I wrote my first story, is about a sensual vampire story. It's right before True Blood, or right when True Blood came out, and it was my first draft, and it was in NaNo. The first time I participated in NaNo, and I shared it with my friends and family. Which, my friends and family are really honest with me. There was a lot of grammatical errors, but the story was so good. And one of my friends said, edit it. I didn't know anything about edit it. And I submitted it in this writing contest. And I did get feedback. The people said it was a very good concept, and that was it. That was it. And I was like, why didn't I win if it was a good concept? Well, when you write a story, you don't stop there. It's like you go through 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 drafts before it is ready to go to a real editor. But with the Snowflake method, my goal is to eliminate a lot of that process. It's not a short way, but yet it is more of a constructive way in writing your first novel. So anyway, that was my first story I wrote. I was so proud of it. I shared it with everybody. And that was the beginning of my writing journey. And I realized there's so much more to writing than just sitting there writing a story straight out of your head. It's a whole process. And my goal as a writer, an author now, is to help you, avoid some of the pitfalls. You're going to make some mistakes, and that's okay. Mistakes are great lessons to learn from. And sometimes when you make that mistake, you might make another one and another one of that same mistake, but you would eventually learn from it. So that was that. And the Snowflake method, really, the purpose of it is to eliminate all that excess writing. When you go through your first and second draft, usually the first draft, you may start into your writing and you get up to 25,000 words and you realize, oh, I don't have enough to write. I don't have enough to make a whole story. Well, using the Snowflake method, it will almost guarantee that you will have a three-story act, a three-story structure act, or however they pronounce it. You will have a full-fledged novel using the Snowflake method. And it will let you see all the open holes in your story that you can fill, and it will save you a lot of invested time. So for the next 10 days, which will take us through the end of the month, I'm going to take you through each of these steps. And some of these steps you may realize that you may not need, and some of them you may like, oh, I can use. And another thing too, you may realize that you can use the Snowflake method for all your stories, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, or children's mystery, or whatever. Because right now I'm working on two stories. I'm working on my cozy mystery. I'm going into the third draft. And I just began to start my children's story, Boo, the ghost that lives in a toaster. So I was brainstorming on that yesterday. But anyway, back to Randy Ingermanson. After I picked this book up again, I didn't have my old notes from the writing seminar. It was so long ago. I fully embrace it. You have to be in a place where you're ready to accept new ideas and discover new ways of writing. My second time I wrote for NaNo I wrote by the seat of my pants. I was strictly a pantser. Whatever was in my head, I wrote down. The only problem is when I went back 2 months later to look at it, I was discouraged and didn't want to pick it up or the story up because it was all over the place. And for me, I need to know how to navigate. I need a roadmap. Oh yeah, it's Boo. It's gonna be cool. And you was my inspiration. I told Jen yesterday I had started a story a while back and I put it aside. But after looking at your story about Harper, because my little girl is in my book, her name is Peyton, which is after my daughter's name, and I wanted more for children of color because we really didn't have any books. I didn't have books to look at and emulate to when I was a child. So yeah, Peyton, she lived in the projects, but she moved out because well, they moved up in life a little bit, I guess you could say. So after reading about Harper and everything that you're gonna do with Harper, I was like, you know what? I love this. I am going to continue on my story for Boo and put it out there for us, our children. Any kid can read it, but I want my little girls or my granddaughters in time to pick up a book and see someone that looked like them in there. So yeah, that was my inspiration. So I'm in the brainstorming process and I'm going to use the Snowflake method to write that story as well. So anyway, the Snowflake method will let you see if you have enough material to write a full-fledged. It will practically write your first draft for you. It will give you really in-depth about who your characters are, your story setting. You will know your story inside out without a shadow of a doubt. Now, the reason why I say get this book, it's a good read because it's dealing with Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And I love it. Who do not love Goldilocks and the Three Bears? I do. So Goldilocks, I'm going to assume she's about 32 or 33 years old in this story. She always did everything for everybody. You know, she lived that good life. She went to college. She did what her parents wanted her to do. She didn't major in what she wanted to major in. She ended up getting married. She had a good job, but she found her job very boring. And she had a couple of kids. And right before her kids was to start school, she realized she always wanted to be a writer. And she wanted to write. And well, she'd been knowing this for a long time, but her parents said there's just no money in writing, and they didn't want her to write. So she was looking through the paper, and she wanted to take up a writing class, a writing workshop. So she found one. And after she got her kids off to school that day, she got her laptop and everything. And she went to, I guess it was this college that was hosting a writing seminar. So that was Papa Bear, his class. She thought she would like his class. And his class was Outlining Made Easy, How to Plot Your Novel. You know, some people like that intensive outline when they plot their novel. So she went in that class, and Papa Bear bragging about how long he's been teaching writing, and also about how many authors use this method of outlining. So she sat there and she realized, okay. So during the break, she went and tried to outline. And she remembered back in school, she had pages and pages of outline. She didn't like that. She found that extremely boring and realized Papa Bear wasn't a class she wanted to be in. So she looked and saw on the next seminar that was held by Mama Bear. So she went into Mama Bear class in her workshop, and Mama Bear was teaching writers how to write organically, to get in touch with your inner you, which is how to write by the seat of your pants, basically. So she sat there and she felt really comfort with Mama Bear, because Mama Bear had these little brown, warm eyes that just drew her in, and she was just a nurturer, you know. So she talked about her writing, her zen for its writing. So during break from this webinar workshop, Goldilocks went out and got her some coffee, and she sat there and she tried to implement everything that Mama Bear said about how to write from the seat of your pants. And all she can come up was the word D. She couldn't get past D. She couldn't think of anything to write about. She didn't know what to write. So she realized, okay, this isn't for me. So then she went to Baby Bear class. And Baby Bear class was about when outlining and writing by the seat of your pants doesn't work, his class would take over. So she sat there and she listened and she realized, oh, there's some familiar faces in there. There was Mother Hubbard in there. There was Little Pig, the little pig there. Remember the Three Little Pigs story? He was the cousin of the pigs that was killed. And in the story was the big bad, what was he? The fox or the wolf, big bad wolf? But he was an agent for the book. So the story is really, really good. It was brilliantly done. And it just brought the whole writing process that Goldilocks had to go through and realize and discover what worked for her versus what didn't work for her. So anyway, that was the main story. And in their story, they broke down, Baby Bear broke down how to use the Snowflake Method in the writing process. And honestly, like I said, the Snowflake Method may work for you and it may not work for you. There's other methods you might want to explore out there. So I'm going to start at the beginning. Before you actually start with step one, you need to know what category your book is in, meaning the genre. If it's a children's book, if it's a mystery, what kind of mystery? If it's a thriller, a sci-fi story, or if you're making a cozy mystery. So mine is a cozy mystery. I knew immediately what genre I wanted to write in. So for you, you need to take some time and determine what category my book will be listed. If I was to go to the bookstore, where will my book sit on the shelf? And it's pretty cool if you can just go down to a bookstore or a library and just envision where your book will be. So once you determine what category your book is in, you need to focus on your target audience, which is very, very, very important. The most important thing is your target audience, because even though you said I'm writing for myself, as a writer, you want someone to read your book. So you have to narrow your target audience and be as specific as possible. And that's what I did yesterday, because I had a general idea of who my target audience was. I didn't get really, really specific. I went by the demographics. I said, well, it's going to be for adults transitioning to another phase in life, 28 and up. A 60-year-old can read my book, an 80-year-old can read my book. But I got a little bit more specific with the demographics, which include the psychographics. You got to think about those two, put them together, because you got to find things that, what would my reader really like in my book? Well, tarot cards is in my book, so there may be some people that think tarot cards are the worst things on earth, especially if they're a Christian. Well, I have Christianity in my book because Aunt Ivy, she's a die-hard Christian. She lives by the Bible. She believes everything what the Bible said, but she's not perfect because she got a lot of skeletons in her closet. So it would appear to those that in the tarot cards or in the psychic, because I have a psychic, she is murdered. I also have my main character. I base my audience on my main character because she is leading this series. She's a 28-year-old sleuth, and with each book, she will probably age 5 to 7 years. So she's going to grow. So it would be millennials. Millennials will find my book interesting because my main character, she's about herself. She's entitled, that self-entitlement. Not only her, there's a lot of characters in there in my town that have moved back home to their small town. And they are, sorry, millennials, but I have one. I have two millennials in my family. They feel entitled, that entitlement. Uh, some of them don't believe in God, they believe in, which is a part of my story too. They also going through the journey of self-discovery. They gamers, but when they get to a certain point in life, they realize, whoa, it's more to life than just gaming. Bay is not a gamer, but she have friends in here that are gamers. So they're going through the transitioning of truly trying to find their purpose in life and discovering who they are. And then my second niche of audience will be those that want a quick read. They're a quick, easy read, but they love a good whodunit. And that's why I love cozy mystery, because it's quick. There's some humorous in there. And you get to solve along as you read, trying to figure out who done it. So that's my next audience. And that can be anyone. Young adults, like I say, mainly women, the demographic, because women love cozy mystery, especially women my age, 50 and up. So, yeah. Jen said, Jen and I did the Who Are You Writing For challenge, where we blog specifically about 3 people we're writing for. And that is really a good activity you want to do. Thanks, Michelle. You want to figure out 3 people that you are writing for, and you can blog it or write it down. When you write it, you tend to retain it more in your memories. And then the other people that I'm writing for are the baby boomers. I'm a baby boomer. I'm right at the 64, at 1964. And for me, being a nurse, well, retired nurse, when I look back, I used to read a lot because I worked the night shift. And baby boomers are taking care of their elderly parents, most of them are, even though they aging themselves. Like now my mom, it's like I feel like I'm very protective and that caregiver of my mom, even though she's still independent and do things on her own, but she's aging, she's an elderly. And then we have our kids who have left the nest but came back home for whatever reason, which are the millenniums. So the millenniums and the elderly are overlapped in the baby boomers, and baby boomers have a lot of responsibility. So I figured, well, someone my age, we need an escape. We don't want to be a part of the story, but we need an escape. And by watching their millennials and their elderlies with a bunch of laughter inside and trying to figure out who done it, that is one of the biggest escapes I love, because I used to escape in my stories, and it was depressing back in the days, because I was a hospice nurse. So death was happening every day, constantly around me. And I found myself doing a lot of my reading at night once my patient has settled down and was quiet. And that was my escape. So those are the three people I'm writing for: the millennials, the 28 and up, the women mainly. Men can pick up some things, but I'm focusing on that young woman that's trying to rediscover who she is or discover who she is and trying to find her purpose in life. I am writing for the baby boomers, such as myself, the primary caregiver who's looking for a quick read, which is the third, a whodunit, quick and easy read. And you can read it anywhere in the doctor's office using your phone or your e-tablet or whatever. So yeah, do that assignment. That's a good assignment to do. If write down 3 people that you want to write for, and you cater your story to those 3 people, even if it's just one. And that's what you're writing for. You want to send them on an emotional journey of delightment through your book. So that's the main goal of your target audience. So, and that moves us on to step 1 of the Snowflake Method, which is really, really, really easy to do. You're going to write a 1-sentence summary using 25 words or less for your story. And I'm going to put that down in the notes when I get through in the chat. So it will be always there for step 1. So once you got your marketing plan and you figure out your demographics and your psychographics dealing with your target audience, you're going to write a 1-sentence summary. And the shorter is better. And the reason why they said 25 words or less is because if someone come up to you and ask you, hey, what you writing and what's your story about? You can just blurt 25 words or less and tell them. You don't want to give them the ending. You don't want to tell them too much about your story. You just want to give them enough to tease them, to ignite that interest. And you can really determine who will be your target audience using that 1 sentence, because either they will say, well, tell me more. And you're going to say, nah, just wait. Make sure you get my book on such and such date. It will be released whenever, give them a date. Or they will just change the subject and walk away if they're not interested. So, that's a possibility. She's not a part or he's not a part of your target audience. But don't narrow your target audience based on, it's just going to be women reading my book. It's not. If you go to the bookstore, you see all kinds of people. It may be the guy that's dressed up in the business suit. He's not in that suit every day. He may really love him some cozy mystery and keep it to himself. He may be a secret reader or something. He might like children's book. So don't stereotype your audience. Just look at some of the things that, in your story that they would gravitate. There's a coffee shop, and coffee, the whole community is centered around the coffee shop. So my book is going to be catered to people who like coffee, people who go to Starbucks. It's not a Starbucks, but that kind of environment. And if you think about Starbucks, you see some of everybody in Starbucks. So pick out some things like that, or some values like, my book will cater to my mom. She's 70 something years old. And she is a diehard Christian now. She probably always been, but more so seem as they get older. So even though she's not going to like the tarot cards, I can hear her now talking about it. But the value that Aunt Ivy will bring to the book, how she would interact with the millennials in my book, my mom would like that. So don't stereotype your audience, but get very specific when you have your target audience. So it seems like I'm writing for everybody, but I'm not. I know who my target audience are. I know who will gravitate towards my book, and probably there may be some that may not. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. So so when you write your 1-sentence summary, do not include the name. This is just the beginning. This is just the premise. This is just to get that idea out of your head. You don't include the name. You include 1 or 2 of your main characters, and something I read in here. There has to be a problem, and then there has to be a solution to the problem that can include. Like, I'm gonna give you an example of mine, and I've been working on several premise to my story, and this is when I was starting out. I knew I wanted to be about a young woman, someone like me. I'm not young, but I was at one point. But she looks like me. She's a Jill Scott, a younger version of the Jill Scott. She's heavy set. She's overweight. She's pretty, and Jill Scott. Bay, her name is Bay Vons. Um, well, anyway, I'm gonna tell you what I wrote about her. A young woman discovers her DNA doesn't match anyone in her family. She returns home seeking answer from the local psychic who was murdered. So that's probably 24 words. So you want to do something like that. I didn't give her a name. She is my main character. That's a problem. Problem is she just discovered her DNA doesn't match anyone in her family. So she's looking for a solution, and the only solution she can get is to go home. She want to ask someone. Instead of asking her family, she goes to the town psychic. But when she gets home, the town psychic is murdered. So that's the problem. So that's the premise of my story. So I'm going to give you, and I'm going to set my timer. um I guess during this time you can either write on what you're working on. If you're new and you're trying to think of a story idea, I'm gonna set a timer for about, it ain't gonna take that long. Let's do a 20-minute timer. And I'm gonna work on my story some more because I'm at that stage in developing more with my characters. And I will join you back after 20 minutes. So let's begin. I'm not going to play music today because I don't want it to be a distraction to those that are writing. And the timer is set. Okay, that completes our, I forgot how long it was. But yeah, so hopefully you had time to write your one sentence summary. And yeah, your one sentence summary. That's all you had to focus on. The shorter, the better. Try to do it in 25 words or less. You can also try to memorize this. So if anybody asks you what you're writing your story about, you'll be able to just tell them right up what's your story, and try to write it as a hook. You know, something that's going to really intrigue them, make them want to ask you what your story is about, ask more about the story, something that's going to really want them to go out and purchase your book as soon as you finish. So, yeah, include one or two main characters of your story. Um, don't tell names and don't tell them the ending. Just something that will grab them, that will summarize your story real briefly. So, like I said, mine is a young woman discovers her DNA doesn't match anyone in her family. She returns home seeking answer from the town psychic who's murdered. Now, I can go really in depth, and that's what we're going to do tomorrow, expand. And that's what the snowflake method is. You take a premise, an ideal, you write that ideal down, and you grow little by little from that ideal and watch it develop into a full-blown novel. And that's what we're going to do, excuse me, with the snowflake method is take that one premise, that one idea, and you're going to be really amazed because right now on your paper you have that one sentence. And by the time we finish this, excuse me, it's still early and I got my allergies. By the time we finish the snowflake method, you're going to have enough to have your novel. So that will be your first draft. And the first draft will be so almost really clean, you know. I heard people say that they don't have to write 3 and 4 and 5 drafts. You know, they take that first draft from the snowflake, they edit, they fill in the holes that's missing, and they send it off to an editor. I wish for me it was that easy. And it may be the next time I write my second story. So we're going to wrap it up today. Michelle, I hope this was a little bit helpful, even though we're probably talking about process that you have already accomplished and done in your writing journey. Um, this is the format we're going to do for the next 10 days. I don't know how you personally feel with music in the background. Let me play a little bit and see if it bothers you. I do like to cater to my audience, something that will work for them. Some people say music distracts them. I've learned that music helps me a little bit. Let me see. Oh, hold on. Get my music up. And see if it will be a distraction to you. Did I keep my music? And this is what my timers look like a 7 minute we usually have a 10-minute warm up. So that's the kind of music I usually play in the background. I might try it tomorrow, but let me know in the comments if you like music, if having a timer, a visual timer there help you more than just the silence. That was my first time doing just the silence without the music and a timer. Let me know in the comments below. I personally like the music. It really puts me in that mood. I want to know how it works for you. Michelle said, this was good. I wanted to write with others. The community aspect is great. Oh, good. Music is fine. If it get distracted. Oh, well, that's good. So great. So usually we go on a little longer. We actually gonna have the former write-ins and the write, where we write so many words a minute, like the writing sprint. And one thing I did learn about a writing sprint from one of the cozy mystery writers, she said, don't focus on how many words you have to write during the writing sprint. Focus on just writing. Set your goals a little bit low, because mine is always like, well, I want to get 500 words or 1,000 words within 20 minutes. And I'm writing, writing, writing. She said, that's too much pressure. Focus on just writing. And that's something I want you as a writer, future writers that gonna participate in our writing sprint starting in October and November for NaNo, is to focus on the writing and not the words, even though we're gonna have the writing sprint. So tomorrow we will be back and we're gonna go on to step 2. Each step is gonna get a little bit more lengthier in the process. There is a few that's not. This was the first step. Um, Put something in the comments if you have any questions about the first step. If you hadn't finished, be sure to work on it. And tomorrow you can share and also do that assignment. For your target audience, pick 3 people that you can write for. What I was doing a while ago, I narrowed it down. I didn't actually write it in the blog post, but I wrote like, and I shared it earlier, but I put it in writing this time. The 3 people I will be writing for, I said the Millennium Woman, not women, but woman. She's 28, and she grows and develops as time goes on with each book. But she's discovering her purpose in life and redefining who she is. Because backstory about her, she's overweight. She was Bayvon. She was an honor student back in high school. She was voted most likely to succeed. She was the class president. She was just extremely popular. Now, when she got out of high school, left a small town, went into the big city, all her expectations and goals that she set for herself bottom out. She did not accomplish any of those things. So she has sort of a low self esteem about herself. Her expectations on herself is higher than anyone else. She assumed everyone else had these high expectations for her, but that wasn't true. So she lives the opposite life of what she expected to live. So at this age, she left home at 18 and she's 28 now. So she's overweight. She used to be in prim shape back in the days. She can't keep a job. She job hops. She don't finish anything that she started. She dropped out of college. She have no idea what she wants to do out of life, and she lives paycheck to paycheck. And that can be common with a lot of us young millennials. Well, I keep saying us. I am not a millennial anymore. So that's who Bay is. Um, I'm writing for that group of people, and I have a daughter who's going through some transitions like that. Even though she's good with the job, but she's discovering, well, dang, I'm not a kid anymore. I'm growing up to be a real adult. The real world out there is real. And going through the pandemic and everything in life now, she see it's just not about games. It's real. So she's going through this transition because she's 27 now. And also, I said I'm writing for the baby boomer. I'm a baby boomer. We are the caregivers of our family. We are seeking that escape through a quick read. Some like to read memoirs, some like to read romance, some like to read uh, thrillers. I like to read cozy mystery. I like to figure out who done it. So I'm writing for that particular baby boom who's looking for a quick read to figure out who done it, and it has to have humor in it because I need to laugh. We need to laugh because we have so much responsibility on our plate. We need to escape and we want a little humor, in what we read. And we also looking for a happy ending because sometimes life can be so hard and you don't always get that happy ending in reality. And I also couldn't think of the third person, but there are other people who might find my book interesting. And I wrote those who simply love a cozy mystery, those who like coffee, the coffee drinkers, the cat lovers, because my main character have a pet cat named Mr. Bud the Wiser. And I'm going to show you pictures of him when we get to the characters because I'm creating a Pinterest board with my characters in my town. So there's a lot of cat lovers out there. So if you love cat, he's her sidekick. And also, I'm writing for people who believe in psychic abilities. Not everybody practice the tarot card or uh, uh, do the psychic, but some people have some belief in it. They may not openly admit it, but since this particular book and my main character has that talent, so people who are into tarot cards and psychic and all this other good stuff will find my book interesting. And also people who likes the characteristic of a small southern town. And see how I narrowed that down? It's a small town, but it's a southern town. And I think there's a difference between a southern town and a northern small town. So that's going to be another characteristic. And also people of color, because my main character is an African American woman, and I want anybody to pick up my book and read. It's not just based on the African American culture, but I want someone that looks like me can see themselves as the main character of this good cozy mystery. So, and plus my town is going to represent diversity because we live in a very diverse world. That's my alarm going off. So anyway, hold on a moment. I thought I cut all this off, but I didn't. So anyway, those are my target audience. And if you can do something like that, and I just put it on a Google Doc, that will help you focus on who you're writing for because those are the people you want to draw into your writing. So let me get back over here. Michelle said, look forward to being back. It was a great learning about this method. I heard about it, but hadn't dived into it. I'm a pantser. Yeah. So you can still be a pantser. There may be some tips in here that you can apply to that lifestyle. I'm a pantser too, but after writing A Cozy Mystery, I realized, oh my gosh, because I pantsed my first way. I pantsed my first draft all the way through it. I didn't even want to call it a first draft afterwards, but I pants. But when I went into the second draft that I did in July, I realized, okay, I need more direction because it was all over the place. And that's when I applied the Snowflake Method. Like I said, some of the tips work, some of them may not work for you. Also, what else? That moment of discovering or transitioning from young adulthood to adulthood, girl, yes. And I can reflect back to when, gosh, I was so naive. You know, we grow up thinking one thing about the world because I think our parents shelter us and protect us. But when we get out there and realize, oh my gosh, it's a whole different world out there. So that's where my main character is at. And those are the people I'm really want to focus on going through that transition with this first book. So I'm going to end it on that. If y'all have any comments, even if you catch this on a replay, be sure to post it. I will respond to it, and I will be back tomorrow, the same time. We're going to move on to step 2. Until then, I want you all to have a wonderful day. Stay safe, be blessed, keep smiling. Wash your hands, wear your mask. I don't know if all states are still with the mask mandate. In Texas, we are. And just protect yourself and protect others around you. And happy writing.